Hello again. Tonight's story is about Callie, who hugged a stranger at the airport to hide from her ex, only to discover Iris was the heiress quietly choosing the seat beside her. Because sometimes love begins as shelter before becoming home. I was late because my life had a talent for choosing humiliating moments with the precision of a trained assassin. Not ordinary late, either. Not the charming kind where you jog through the terminal with your scarf streaming behind you and everyone understands you are a busy woman with places to be. I was the other kind of late, the kind involving a carry-on with one wheel developing a moral objection to movement, a coffee lid that had betrayed me somewhere near security, and a client deck open on my phone because I had convinced myself that if I reread the opening slide one more time, I could prevent the entire New York pitch from collapsing into ash. SeaTac at 7 on a Monday morning had the particular atmosphere of a civilization that had given up on grace. Men in fleece vests stared at departure boards as if they could intimidate planes into punctuality. Children dragged plush animals by the ankle. Someone behind me was conducting a conference call at a volume more appropriate for maritime rescue. I had my laptop bag cutting a groove into my shoulder, coffee on my blouse, and a boarding pass telling me I had exactly 12 minutes to reach a gate that seemed to be receding from me out of spite. I rounded the corner near the B gates, breathless and already composing apologies to my account director in my head, and came face to face with my ex. Dana stood beside a window flooded with gray morning light, laughing at something a woman in a camel coat had said. Of course she was laughing. Dana laughed like the world had been built for her private enjoyment, and she was graciously letting the rest of us rent space in it. She looked rested. She looked luminous. She looked like the breakup had been a minor inconvenience on her way to a better hair day. The woman beside her had glossy dark curls, a hand tucked into the crook of Dana's elbow, and the slightly amazed expression people wore in the first phase of being chosen by Dana, before they discovered that being chosen could feel a lot like being curated. My body reacted before my dignity could submit a formal objection. Every old instinct came back at once, trained by 2 years of reading Dana's face for weather. I turned blindly toward the nearest person, caught the lapel of an extremely expensive black coat, buried my face against a shoulder that smelled faintly of cedar and cold air, and whispered, "Please just go with this for 10 seconds. I am begging you." The stranger did not flinch. That was the first thing I noticed, absurdly. No startled jerk, no offended gasp, no attempt to peel me off like a damp sticker. There was a silence so precise it felt measured. Quick note before we continue. If you want hotter and uncensored GL stories, I'll be sharing them on my Patreon page. These are the scenes I can't post here, so check the description for details. Then a hand settled lightly on my back, between my shoulder blades, with the care of someone placing a bookmark in a rare edition. Not possessive, not theatrical. Just there, warm through my coat. Deliberate enough to make the lie believable. "Breathe," the woman said, very softly. I did. Or at least I attempted an imitation of breathing. My forehead was pressed against cashmere that probably cost more than my rent. My coffee-stained blouse was smearing against a person I had assaulted emotionally and possibly legally, and Dana's laugh floated somewhere behind me like a cursed wind chime. "Is she looking?" I whispered. "Yes." "Oh, God!" She has stopped laughing. I should not have enjoyed that. I did, briefly and viciously. "Now?" I asked. Still looking. The woman beside her is also looking. A man with a pretzel is looking, though I believe he is unrelated. Against every rule of airport conduct and post-breakup survival, I nearly laughed into the stranger's shoulder. The sound came out cracked and mortifying, but it was a laugh. The hand on my back remained steady. 10 seconds, the woman said. "You asked for 10. We are at 14. I pulled away as if burned, because there are only so many kinds of public disgrace a person can metabolize before breakfast. "I am so sorry," I blurted. "I am unbelievably sorry. I don't usually grab strangers. That's not a thing I do. I mean, statistically, I have now done it once, but before this, I had a clean record." Then I looked at her properly. Recognition arrived slowly, like a suitcase appearing on the wrong carousel. Korean American, maybe late 30s, though her face had the calm ambiguity of wealth and excellent moisturizer. Black hair cut just below her jaw, sleek without being severe. A long coat with a sharp collar. A small gold watch. Eyes so dark they made the morning around us look underlit. I knew that profile. I knew the elegant line of her hand when she turned a page. I knew the way she angled her laptop slightly away from everyone and never bought snacks from the cart. She was the woman from the flights. Not one flight. Several. The woman who had sat beside me from Seattle to Chicago, from Chicago back to Seattle, Seattle to Los Angeles, Seattle to New York, maybe San Francisco, once though that trip had been mostly turbulence and my own silent bargaining with the universe. Always the aisle seat beside my window, always quiet, always polite when she let me climb over her, always vanishing the moment we landed. My brain, already operating on panic and airport coffee, made a sound like a printer jam. You, I said, one eyebrow moved by perhaps a millimeter. Me. We've flown together. Yes. Several times. Yes. And I just used you as a human panic curtain. Her gaze flicked over my shoulder, then back to my face. It was not the strangest thing I have been used for at an airport. I desperately want to ask and also never know. This time, the corner of her mouth changed. It was not quite a smile, but it was close enough to make my stomach drop through the polished floor. Callie? Dana's voice came from behind me, warm and surprised and sharpened at the edges. Wow, hi. My body went rigid. The woman in front of me noticed. I knew she noticed because her hand, which had lowered to her side, rose again and touched my elbow with the lightest pressure. Permission disguised as balance. I turned. Dana, hi. There she was, my 2-year mistake, looking at me with the bright concern of someone who had spent years perfecting the art of seeming kinder than she was. Her new person stood close, pretty and curious. Dana's eyes moved from my face to the woman beside me and then to the place where that woman's fingers still rested against my sleeve. I didn't know you were traveling today, Dana said. The sentence had no business affecting me. We had been broken up for 3 months. She did not get access to my calendar anymore. Still, my first instinct was to answer, to explain, to make my life legible to her so she could approve or disapprove of it at her leisure. The woman beside me spoke before I could. We are on a schedule. Dana blinked. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't think we've met. No, the woman said. We have not. It was not rude. Somehow that made it worse. She offered nothing for Dana to catch. No name, no apology, no social thread. Dana was used to people handing her thread. Dana's smile held, but I saw the tiny recalibration behind it. Well, Dana said, turning her attention back to me. It's good to see you. You look busy. I was aware of my coffee stain, my crooked bag, my general aura of raccoon in a blazer. New York pitch, Monday glamour. Still at Larkin Bell? Still paying rent with adjectives, yes. Dana laughed as if she had always found my self-deprecation adorable, though during our relationship she had mostly treated it like an opening to correct me. We should catch up sometime. There it was, the hook wrapped in velvet. Maybe, I said, which was not a yes, and the small triumph of that almost steadied me. The woman beside me glanced at the screen over the gate. Boarding has begun. It had not. Our gate was 2 corridors away. I loved her for lying with such clean posture. Right, I said. We should go. Good to see you, Dana. You too, Dana said, and her eyes stayed on the woman beside me a second too long. Safe flight. We walked away together. I did not breathe until we turned another corner and the terminal swallowed Dana from view. Thank you, I said, for the assist and the lie. It was beautifully delivered. Very minimalist. I dislike unnecessary embellishment. A woman after my own client feedback weary heart. She looked at me then. Really looked, and I remembered that I did not know her name. I had invented names for her on previous flights because my brain had the boundaries of a bored novelist. Once I had called her window seat nemesis, which was inaccurate because she always took the aisle. Once, after watching her decline a plastic cup of orange juice with the gravity of a treaty negotiation, I had called her no pulp. None of these seemed appropriate to say aloud. "I'm Callie," I said. "Callie Marsh. Since you have now served as my emergency contact in a fake relationship for roughly 30 seconds, it seems rude not to introduce myself." "Iris CO," she said. No explanation, no company, no handshake, just the name, dropped between us like something polished and heavy. "Thank you, Iris CO." "You're welcome, Callie Marsh." My name and her voice did something alarming to the architecture of my spine. We reached my gate, which was in fact boarding, because apparently the universe had decided to reward her lie retroactively. I fumbled for my pass. Iris stood slightly behind me, close enough that I could sense the warmth of her coat, and far enough that no one else would assume anything, which felt, after Dana's performance, like a form of mercy. "Are you on this flight?" I asked, though I already knew. Something in my ribs had begun to understand before my mind did. "Yes." "New York?" "Yes." "Business?" "Always." "That sounds bleak." "Often." The gate agent scanned my pass and waved me through. I stepped onto the jet bridge, then glanced back. Iris was right behind me, boarding Group 1 somehow joining the general boarding stream as if airline hierarchy meant nothing to her. Maybe it did not. She handed over her phone. The agent smiled at her with the reflexive deference people gave to expensive calm, and then we were walking down the narrow blue-gray tunnel together. "What seat?" I asked, trying for casual and landing somewhere near crime scene investigator. 16C. My boarding pass read 16A. The aisle between us might as well have turned into a courtroom. "Of course," I said. "Is that a problem?" "No. Why would it be a problem?" I often begin my mornings by clutching future seatmates in public and then trapping them beside me for 5 hours. It's efficient. I thought so. There it was again, the almost smile. If she had fully smiled, I suspected I would have missed my step and perished dramatically between first class and economy comfort. The plane smelled like recycled air, carpet cleaner, and the specific human resignation of early boarding. I slid into the window seat, shoved my bag under the seat in front of me, and immediately became too aware of the empty middle seat between us. Iris placed her leather tote beneath the seat with an economy of motion that made my own movements feel like a raccoon assembling furniture. She sat in the aisle, crossed one ankle over the other, and opened a thin folder as though nothing unusual had happened. For a while, nothing did. Boarding continued. A man argued gently with an overhead bin. A toddler announced that planes were too loud, which was true and frankly brave. I stared out at the wing and tried not to replay the sensation of Iris's hand on my back. It had been a practical touch, a charitable touch, a stranger responding to an emergency, albeit one caused entirely by my inability to handle seeing my ex with excellent cheekbones. Then the middle seat remained empty. The boarding door closed. The flight attendant made the announcements. Iris did not move into the middle because no sane person moves toward the middle seat voluntarily, but the empty space between us changed quality. It became a held breath. "I should apologize again," I said as we pushed back from the gate. "You've apologized twice." "I come from a long maternal line of women who believe guilt should be layered for insulation." "Then by all means." "I'm sorry." "Accepted." Again. "And thank you." Again. "Also accepted." I pressed my head back against the seat. Outside, Seattle blurred in rain-streaked gray. "I handled that badly." "You were startled." I attached myself to a stranger's coat. "The coat survived." "Did you?" She turned one page in the folder. Jury is still out. I looked at her profile and found, to my horror, that I was smiling. Not my professional smile, the one that said, "Of course we can make your Heritage Pickle brand feel aspirational to Gen Z." A real one, a stupid one. You know, I said, most people would have asked questions. You asked for 10 seconds, not an intake form. That's very ethical of you. I try. The plane lifted, pressing me gently into the seat. I usually love takeoff. I liked the brief, clean violence of it, the way the ground surrendered. That morning, with Dana behind me somewhere in the city and Iris beside me reading a document dense with numbers, takeoff felt less like escape than relocation of the problem. My life had come with me, overhead bin and all. I opened my laptop after we leveled out and tried to work. The client was a boutique hotel group that wanted to seem intimate but scalable, local but consistent, premium but not alienating, which was the sort of impossible triangle that kept agencies fed. I had built a positioning narrative around belonging without performance. I had liked the phrase on Friday. By Monday morning, after hugging Iris CO to survive my ex, it felt personally accusatory. "You're frowning at your deck," Iris said. I glanced over. "Do I know you well enough for you to identify my deck-related facial expressions?" "I have seen you frown at decks before." Something in the sentence caught. Before. Multiple befores, acknowledged without ornament. I stared at my screen. Slide 12 glowed back at me. Guests don't want to be impressed. They want to be known. I wished my own work would stop narrating my inner life. "That's unsettling," I said lightly. "The frowning or the observation?" "Yes." She closed her folder. "You also tap your left thumb against the spacebar when you are trying not to delete a sentence." My thumb froze mid-tap. "I do not." "You do." "That's invasive information to possess before we've officially exchanged more than 4 sentences." "We are at considerably more than 4. Now who's counting?" "You seemed concerned about metrics." I laughed, and the sound felt too loud in the cabin. Iris looked away toward the aisle, but I saw the change in her mouth. Suppressed. Barely. The almost smile's more dangerous cousin. Somewhere over Idaho, after 2 cups of terrible coffee and half an hour of pretending to adjust kerning while actually staring at the same paragraph, I did the math. Seattle to Chicago in March. I had been going to rescue a doomed campaign for a meal kit startup that insisted its frozen stews were part of an emotional wellness journey. Iris had been beside me, reading a book in French and making no visible notes. Seattle to Los Angeles 2 weeks later, when I had spilled pretzels into my own bag, and she had silently offered a napkin without looking up. The red-eye from New York in April, when I had slept badly against the window and woken to find the shade lowered to keep sunrise off my face. I had assumed the flight attendant did it. Maybe not. Chicago again in May. San Francisco when the turbulence got ugly and she had set her water bottle in the seat pocket so it would stop rattling after I flinched. New York last month. And now, 7 flights. Always beside me, always the aisle to my window. The explanations lined up obediently, then began throwing themselves off cliffs. Corporate routes, similar schedules, a loyalty program algorithm with a sense of narrative irony. Maybe she also preferred the aisle in the same fare class at the same times to the same cities. Maybe she had a job like mine. Except she did not feel like someone who needed to fly economy comfort, or whatever optimistic phrase the airline had pasted over 4 extra inches of knee room. Everything about Iris suggested she belonged behind the curtain in first class, where the drinks came in glass and people pretended not to watch each other. I looked at her coat folded with surgical neatness over her lap, her watch, the leather tote, the calm. She was reading now, not French this time, but a report. A chart reflected faintly in her glasses. I had not noticed the glasses before. Thin gold frames. Devastating. Unfair, frankly. "What?" she asked without looking up. "Nothing." "You stopped typing." "Maybe I finished." "You did not look relieved." Maybe the ending is tragic. She turned a page. Hotel positioning decks rarely are. You'd be surprised. Last year, I wrote authentic communal luxury and lost respect for myself for 6 weeks. That did it. A laugh escaped her. Not large, not dramatic, but real. A low, brief sound that seemed to surprise her as much as it ruined me. She looked down immediately, as if she could retrieve it and put it back. I stared at my laptop with the intense focus of someone trying not to appear as though a laugh had just rearranged her internal furniture. So, I said after a minute, because apparently I had no survival instincts left. Do you fly this route a lot? Which route? All of them. Her hand stilled on the page. There. Not much. A pause. But it was enough to make every hair along my arms pay attention. I travel often, she said. For business. Always. Yes. I should have asked. I should have said, have you been buying the seat beside me because that is either the beginning of a romance novel or a criminal deposition? But the question felt too large for the space between us. If the answer was coincidence, I would be embarrassed. If it was not, I would be something worse. So I nodded. Right. Business. Her eyes touched my face, then left it. Callie. I looked at her. For a moment, the cabin around us became oddly quiet, though nothing had changed. The engines roared. Someone coughed. A flight attendant laughed softly near the front. Iris seemed to consider a sentence, weigh it, and decide against releasing it into the world. Your slide, she said instead. Belonging without performance. That is the better phrase. I glanced down. I had typed it without noticing. Not the line from Friday. A new line. You can read upside down? Only when the type is large and emotionally revealing. That's a terrifying skill. Useful in boardrooms. Are you in a lot of boardrooms? Enough. Mysterious. Economical. Infuriating. She returned to her report. So I've been told. By the time we landed at JFK, my pitch deck was better and my nervous system was worse. Iris let me out first, standing in the aisle with one hand on the seat back, creating space with her body in the subtle way powerful people did without seeming to. I pulled my bag down badly, nearly struck myself in the face with it, and felt her hand close around the strap to steady it. Careful, she said. That word and I have a distant relationship. I had noticed. We moved with the slow herd into the terminal. At the end of the jet bridge, where people began separating toward baggage claim, transfers, drivers, lives, I stopped. Well, thank you for being my fake girlfriend for 30 seconds and my unsolicited deck consultant for 5 hours. I don't believe girlfriend was specified. Heat rushed up my neck. No, right, I mean, human shield. Very different job description. Less paperwork? Usually. The smile almost came back. Good luck with your pitch, Callie. Thanks. Good luck with... always business. She inclined her head, and then she was gone, swallowed by a corridor full of people who all seemed less aware than I was that the air had changed where she passed through it. The pitch went well, which felt rude of the universe. I had expected, after the airport and the flight, and the sudden possibility that Iris CO had been orbiting my travel schedule for reasons unknown, that I might at least be allowed to fail dramatically. Instead, I stood in a conference room in Soho with exposed brick behind me and remembered that I was good at my job. Put me in front of a brand problem, and something in me clicked into place. I could hear the false note in a mission statement from 20 paces. I could tell a room full of skeptical executives that what they thought was a positioning issue was actually a trust issue, and they would nod as if I had shown them a secret door. Belonging without performance, I said beside slide 12, while Mara, my account director, watched me with the rare expression she reserved for moments when I was making us money. A guest should feel recognized without feeling studied. I heard the sentence as I said it and thought of Iris reading upside down, her voice saying emotionally revealing. The client loved it. Afterward, Mara and I celebrated at a rooftop bar that had made an entire personality out of charging $22 for cocktails named after weather patterns. New York glittered below us, indifferent and gorgeous. Mara ordered something green and medicinal. I ordered a drink called the Quiet Hour because I was tired and susceptible to branding. "You were excellent today," Mara said. "Annoyingly excellent. Different, too. Sharper. Less eager to soften the blow." "Maybe I'm evolving." "That sounds unlikely." "Cruel but fair." She studied me over her glass. "Did something happen with Dana?" I told her the abbreviated version. Dana at SeaTac, the woman beside her, my innovative decision to hug a stranger as camouflage. Mara listened without interrupting, which was how I knew she was enjoying herself too much. "A stranger," she said when I finished. "Semi-stranger. Frequent seatmate, apparently." "Callie." "I know. I leave you unsupervised for one flight. Technically, you leave me unsupervised for most flights." Mara opened her mouth, presumably to say something devastating, but her eyes shifted past me. "Is that her?" I turned because I had learned nothing from myth, folklore, or basic self-preservation. Across the rooftop, behind the bamboo in the private section, Iris CEO sat at a table with 6 people who all had the polished exhaustion of executives discussing something too expensive to name. She had changed into a dark suit with a silk blouse the color of deep cream. Her hair was tucked behind one ear. A wine glass rested untouched near her right hand. She was listening to an older man with silver hair, her face composed, her stillness so complete it made everyone else look slightly inefficient. Then her eyes lifted and found mine. The city did not stop. Music still pressed softly through hidden speakers. Mara still breathed beside me. Somewhere a woman laughed too loudly at a joke, but the line between Iris and me drew itself across the rooftop with humiliating clarity. Iris raised her glass a fraction. Not a wave, not an invitation, barely an acknowledgement. Enough. I lifted my ridiculous quiet hour in response. My hand was steady. The rest of me was not. "That," Mara said slowly, "is the stranger? Frequent seatmate. That woman looks like she owns the building. Maybe she just has good posture." Mara gave me a look. "Callie. I don't know who she is." The moment I said it, Iris turned slightly to answer someone at her table, and one of the men leaned toward her with the unmistakable deference of a person addressing the most important person in the conversation. "Mara, watch this. You should probably find out. That sounds like the beginning of a mistake. Most useful information is." I did not sleep well that night. In a hotel room with morally superior white sheets, I Googled Iris CEO and then threw my phone onto the other side of the bed as if it had insulted me. The search results were quiet, which made them worse. CEO of SEO Meridian Group, sole heiress after her father's death, private holdings in logistics, real estate, and luxury hospitality. Disciplined, opaque, formidable. Not tabloid famous, known in the right rooms. I stared at the ceiling. I had hugged a private holdings CEO at an airport because my ex laughed too close to my gate. There were not enough weighted blankets in the world. My flight back to Seattle was delayed 2 days later because the sky over New York had decided to empty a bathtub onto the runway. I reached the gate already damp at the edges and emotionally prepared to spend 2 hours eating a sad airport sandwich while pretending not to think about Iris CEO, which meant, naturally, that she was sitting alone near the windows when I arrived. This time, she was not on her laptop. She had a book open in one hand and a paper cup of tea on the small table beside her. No entourage, no executive dinner, no visible force field, though people gave her space anyway, instinctively flowing around the empty seats near her as if she were architecture. I considered walking past. I considered moving to another gate, even though that would be insane. I considered pretending I had not seen her, but my personality had many flaws and none of them included acting ability. She looked up before I decided. Callie, she said. There was my name again, precise and unnervingly welcome. Iris. I stopped in front of her with my wet coat over one arm and my bag sliding down my shoulder. Fancy meeting you in an airport, our shared natural habitat. Your flight is delayed. Is that a question, or do CEOs receive weather before the rest of us? The board changed. Ah, democracy. She closed the book with one finger marking her place. Would you like to sit? I looked at the empty chair beside her. A normal person would have sat. A person with healthy instincts would have asked one of the many questions currently lighting fires in her skull. I sat because apparently I had chosen curiosity over survival as a brand pillar. Thank you, I said. For a minute, we watched rain slide down the window in shining ropes. Planes waited on the tarmac, huge and patient. The delay gave the terminal a suspended feeling, as if all of us had been temporarily excused from the lives waiting on either side of travel. Your pitch, Iris said. It went well? It did, which was inconvenient because I had planned to blame my failure on personal turmoil and airport-related misconduct. I'm sorry to have deprived you of that. You should be. I had a whole narrative. You seem fond of narratives. I'm in branding. We take perfectly functional things and give them abandonment issues. The laugh came faster this time, still small, still guarded, but less accidental. It moved through me with absurd force. I wanted to make her do it again. That desire felt innocent for approximately half a second before becoming terrifying. What about you? I asked. Did your always business go well? Some of it. That sounds like the executive version of screaming into a pillow. I don't scream into pillows. No, I imagine you send pillows a memo about performance expectations. Her mouth curved. Actually, curved. I stared at the rain with heroic discipline. You Googled me, she said. My soul left my body, saw the terminal lighting, and declined to return. What? You looked different when you said my name just now. Maybe your name has grown on me. Callie. I groaned and covered my face with one hand. Fine. Yes, I Googled you. In my defense, you appeared at a rooftop bar in a private section looking like the answer to a question no one at my tax bracket is allowed to ask. That is a vivid defense. I was sleep deprived. What did you find? I dropped my hand. Enough to feel I should retroactively curtsy for the airport assault. Please don't. Would a small bow be acceptable? No. Noted. A group of teenagers in matching sweatshirts collapsed into seats across from us, all knees and chargers and dramatic sighs. Iris watched them with the wary fascination of someone observing a species she had read about but not encountered socially. Do you dislike airports? I asked. No. That was quick. Why? She looked toward the rain. They are honest. Everyone is between selves. No one can pretend to be entirely settled. Even composed people are waiting for someone else to tell them when they may move. Beautiful or bleak, I said. Possibly both. Most accurate things are. Do you spend a lot of time between selves? Her thumb moved once along the edge of her closed book. I spend a lot of time between rooms where people want different versions of me. It was the first personal thing she had said to me, and she said it as if she were describing a gate change. I did not pounce. Wanting someone to keep talking was not the same as deserving more. That sounds exhausting. Her eyes moved to mine. Most people are. Present company excluded, I hope. Present company is unexpected. One of my nicer reviews. She laughed, and this time she did not look away quickly enough. For one clear second, I saw what her face looked like before she locked it down. Younger, almost startled. warmth breaking through a surface built to withstand weather. "What are you reading?" I asked, because my feelings had become a fire code violation. She showed me the cover. It is about a woman who mistakes solitude for safety until safety begins to resemble a locked room. "So light airport reading." "I contain compartments," she said, and the rain struck harder against the window. The rain struck harder against the window. Around us, passengers shifted and complained and built temporary camps around outlets. I felt the conversation tilt toward something real enough to frighten both of us. "Iris," I said. She looked up. I could have asked anything. "Why me? Why the flights? Why did you lower the shade on the red-eye? Why do I feel more seen by your silence than I felt after 2 years with someone who knew every password to my streaming accounts?" Instead, I asked the smallest true thing. "Have you been on all of those flights?" The change in her was so subtle another person might have missed it. Her shoulders did not stiffen, her expression did not close, but the air around her withdrew half an inch. "Yes," she said. My heart gave one hard beat. "All 7? "Yes." There it was. No denial, no laugh, no easy explanation. The terminal seemed to blur behind her. Were they coincidences? She held my gaze for a long moment. "Not all of them." My mouth went dry. "Iris." "I know." "Do you?" "Because I don't know, and I'm the one in the sentence." A faint line appeared between her brows. "You seemed like someone worth being near." It was not enough. It was too much. It landed between us with impossible weight, precise and insufficient, just as she was. "That's not an explanation," I said. "No." "It's something a person says when they want credit for honesty without providing information." Something flickered in her eyes. Pain, maybe. Irritation. Respect. "Yes." "I don't know what to do with that." "You don't have to do anything." "I think the ship sailed when you apparently purchased proximity across multiple domestic routes." A flush touched her cheekbones, so faint I might have imagined it. "I did not intend to make you uncomfortable." "What did you intend?" She looked away toward the runway. A plane crawled through rain, lights blinking. "I don't know how to answer that without making it worse." The honesty of that softened me when I did not want to soften. "Try." "I noticed you," she said. Each word seemed selected from a dangerous shelf. "On the first flight. You were arguing with a sentence. Quietly. Angrily. You deleted it 12 times. Then you helped the woman in the row behind us calm her son because he was afraid of takeoff. You told him the plane was just a very large bird with paperwork." I remembered the boy. I had forgotten the sentence. Iris continued, eyes still on the rain. "You were funny when no one required you to be. Kind when it did not benefit you. Then, on another flight, you cried without making a sound for 20 minutes and still thanked the flight attendant for water as if she had done something extraordinary. That was after Dana and I had broken up the first time, before I went back for the encore humiliation." My face went hot. "I didn't know anyone saw that." "I know." The words were gentle. They hurt anyway. "So you started booking seats beside me?" I asked. "Not immediately." "That's not the comforting distinction you think it is." Her mouth tightened. "I understand." "Do you?" This time she looked at me and her composure had a crack in it, wide enough for me to glimpse the fear underneath. Not fear of me, exactly. Fear of wanting. Fear of being seen wanting. For a second, the power between us shifted and revealed itself as something lonelier than I had expected. "No," she said. "Probably not." Our delay changed from 2 hours to 3. The board updated with a cheerful chime that made several passengers curse. I stood because sitting still had become impossible. "I need to walk." Iris nodded once. I wanted her to stop me. I wanted her not to. Instead, I walked the length of the terminal, past pretzels and perfume and men in quarter zips, feeling the shape of her confession press against my ribs. You seemed like someone worth being near. Dana would have said it beautifully. Dana would have turned it into a speech with eye contact and a hand on my cheek. Iris had said it like an admission of guilt. When I returned, she had moved to the counter. A minute later, my phone buzzed. My seat had been upgraded. First class. Seat 3A. No, I said when she came back. Absolutely not. The flight is oversold. I upgraded both of us. Separate rows, if you prefer not to sit near me. I hated that my anger did not know where to land. She had heard me. She had tried to give me space. She had still solved discomfort with logistics and money, which was apparently her native tongue. You can't purchase your way out of tension, I said. I am becoming aware. The sentence was so dry and bleakly self-indicting that I almost laughed. Instead, I rubbed my forehead. I don't know what I want from you right now. Yeah, then I won't ask. That would be considerate if it weren't also evasive. A quiet breath left her. Yes. We boarded eventually. I took 3A. Iris took 5C. The seat was wider, the glass was real, and the loneliness felt upgraded too. Back in Seattle, life resumed its ordinary costume. Rain returned to being weather instead of metaphor, though Seattle enjoyed doubling whenever possible. I went to work, I answered emails, I listened to a junior copywriter explain why the word craft felt more premium than make. I bought groceries and let arugula rot in my fridge because optimism, like salad, has a short shelf life. 3 days after the delayed flight, Dana texted. It was a simple message, which was how she made them dangerous. Hope you're well. Saw something that made me think of you. Would you be open to coffee? I stared at it in the office kitchen while the microwave rotated someone's soup with the determination of a tiny planet. My first reaction was not longing. It was recognition, deep in the body, of an old hallway I knew how to walk. Dana was familiar pain. If I went to coffee, I would know the script. She would be warm, regretful in a carefully non-specific way, curious just enough to reestablish access. I would make jokes. She would laugh. I would leave flattered and diminished, and for a few hours the confusion of Iris would seem avoidable. I said yes. Not because I missed Dana. I told myself that twice and knew I was lying by the second repetition. I said yes because Iris scared me more than loneliness did. We met on a rainy afternoon at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill, where Dana and I had once argued quietly for 40 minutes about whether I was being sensitive or whether she had humiliated me at a dinner party. The pastry case had changed. The lighting had not. Dana arrived 5 minutes late, glowing and apologetic. Traffic was ridiculous, she said, kissing the air near my cheek. You look good. Thanks. You too. She did. That was the terrible thing. Cream sweater, gold hoops, hair loose. She ordered oat milk without asking if I wanted anything, then seemed to remember and turned back with a little grimace. Sorry, do you want your usual? My usual had changed 6 months ago. She did not know. The smallness of that should not have mattered. It did. I'm fine, I said. We sat by the window. Rain slicked the street outside, turning passing cars into streaks of white and red. Dana wrapped both hands around her cup and gave me the soft look that had once made me feel chosen. It really was good to see you at the airport, she said. You seemed close with your friend. Iris, I said. Her name felt private in my mouth. Her name is Iris. Dana's eyebrows lifted. Is that new? Knowing people's names? I'm trying it. She laughed, but her eyes narrowed. You know what I mean. Do I? Dana leaned back. I guess I don't have the right to ask. It was the kind of sentence designed to make me reassure her that she did. I watched the old doorway open. I did not walk through. No, I said. Not really. A flicker crossed her face. There and gone. Fair. For half an hour, Dana talked about work, her new apartment, mutual friends, and the woman from the airport as if describing a restaurant she was trying. Not serious, she implied. Fun. Easy. Dana liked easy until it wanted something. I miss talking to you, she said eventually. You always understood me. For 2 years, that sentence would have opened me. I had built so much of myself around understanding Dana, translating her moods, forgiving the things she did not name because naming them made her feel trapped. I did, I said. I understood you a lot. I don't think it was good for me. The warmth faltered. Callie, I know I wasn't perfect. I almost smiled. That's usually what people say right before they avoid specifics. Wow. Sorry, that came out sharper than I meant. No, it's fine. I guess you've been saving that. There it was, the pivot. My hurt becoming my pettiness. Familiar pain, familiar hallway. I stood. I should go. Already? Yeah, I have work. Her expression softened again, but now I could see the machinery under it. I didn't ask to meet because I wanted to hurt you. I know. Then why are you acting like I did? Because intent had been your favorite hiding place. Because someone who barely knew me had steadied a bag before it hit my face, and somehow that had felt more careful than half our relationship. I said none of that. I was learning, slowly, that not every truth needed to be handed to the person least likely to protect it. Take care, Dana, I said. Outside, the rain was cold and needling. I walked 6 blocks before I realized I was crying. Not hard, not dramatically, just enough for the city to blur. I did not miss Dana. I missed the version of myself who had believed endurance was proof of love. At home, I found an email from Mara waiting in my inbox. Subject line, you sitting down. The body read, we got invited to pitch for a hospitality identity refresh tied to SEO Meridian Group. Formal gala next Thursday is apparently the soft kickoff/networking circus. We need you there. Wear something that says strategic but not underfunded. Below that was a forwarded invitation with a gold crest, a downtown hotel address, and Iris SEO's name in the host committee list. I stared at the screen. Then I said, to my empty apartment, absolutely not. The following Thursday, because adulthood is mostly doing things you've said absolutely not to, I stood in a hotel ballroom wearing a black dress I had bought on sale with the optimism of a woman who occasionally imagined being invited somewhere with better lighting. The gala was for a foundation connected to historic hotel preservation, which meant the room was full of developers, architects, philanthropists, hospitality executives, and people who could say adaptive reuse without irony. Crystal chandeliers made everyone look expensive or ill, depending on complexion. Servers moved through the crowd with champagne and tiny spoons of food too architectural to trust. Mara appeared at my side in a suit the color of smoke. Stop looking like you're waiting for a dental procedure. I love networking. It nourishes my soul. Your soul runs on coffee and resentment. Smile. I smiled. Less hostage. I tried again. Good enough. For 20 minutes, I behaved. I shook hands. I spoke about guest experience and market differentiation. I accepted a tiny spoon of something involving beet foam and regretted it immediately. I did not look for Iris. Not directly. My awareness of her, however, was humiliatingly comprehensive. If she had entered the ballroom behind me, I suspected my shoulder blades would have filed a report. I saw her first near a marble column, speaking with a woman in a silver dress and an older man whose name I recognized from a real estate article. Iris wore midnight blue. Not black, as I had expected, but blue so dark it revealed itself only when she moved under the chandelier light. The dress was simple, high-necked, sleeveless, severe in a way that made severity look intimate. Her hair was pinned back. Small diamond earrings. No necklace. She looked untouchable, which I knew by then was not the same as untouched. Her gaze crossed the room and found me as if she had known my coordinates all along. Neither of us moved. Mara, who missed nothing and respected privacy only when legally compelled, murmured, "Ah, don't." I didn't say anything. Your "ah" had paragraphs. Your face has a footnote. I took a sip of champagne and discovered I disliked champagne when emotionally cornered. We are here for work. Of course. Professional context. Naturally. Mara. I said naturally. The evening became a choreography of almost. Iris and I moved through the same orbit, never colliding. I spoke with a hotel investor while she passed behind him, and my entire body registered the cedar-cold scent of her before my mind caught up. She stood in a cluster near the bar, while I discussed audience segmentation with a woman who seemed to think millennials were a coastal weather event. Once, I heard Iris laugh softly at something someone said, and jealousy struck me so absurdly that I nearly forgot the word psychographic. It was not jealousy of a person. It was jealousy of access. Someone had made her laugh without having to earn it in airport increments, and my body objected like a badly trained dog. After an hour, I escaped to a balcony off the side of the ballroom, drawn by the promise of air that had not been filtered through perfume and ambition. The balcony overlooked downtown Seattle, wet streets shining below, office towers lit in grids. The rain had paused. The world smelled washed and metallic. I was alone for perhaps 30 seconds. The door opened behind me. I did not turn. "If you're here to tell me about donor conversion," I said, "I'm jumping." "From this height, you would mostly inconvenience the shrubbery," Iris said. My hands tightened on the stone railing. "Good to know." She came to stand beside me, leaving a polite distance that felt more charged than closeness. For a while, we looked out at the city. "You came," she said. "Work. Mara made me. Also, there are tiny spoons." The spoons are persuasive. "You've barely touched anything all night." "You've been watching?" I turned my head. "Have you?" A fair hit. The corner of her mouth acknowledged it without becoming a smile. "I went to coffee with Dana," I said. I did not know why I said it. Maybe because the balcony felt like a place where lies would have nowhere to sit. Maybe because Iris had bought 7 seats beside me and still somehow deserved not to learn my life through implication. Her face did not change. "I see." "Do you?" "No." Honesty again. Blunt and strangely tender. "It wasn't—" I stopped. The old urge to explain myself rose, then met the newer knowledge that I did not have to file emotional paperwork for wanting clarity. "It wasn't because I wanted her back." Iris looked at the city. "You don't owe me an explanation." "I know. I'm giving you one anyway. Try to enjoy the novelty." That almost smile. Gone quickly. "I went because she was familiar," I said. "And because you are not. Familiar, I mean. You are many things, but familiar is not currently leading the list." "What is?" "Alarming." "That seems fair." "And careful, and impossible to read except when you're not, and then it feels like standing too close to a window during a storm." Her breath changed. I heard it because we were both quiet enough, because the city below gave us cover. "I did not handle the flights well," she said. A laugh escaped me, small and incredulous. That is one way to phrase it. "I don't know how to want things outside acquisition." She said it evenly, but the words seemed to cost her. "That is not an excuse. It is a defect in my training. My father taught me to identify value, secure access, reduce exposure, control variables. He did not teach me what to do when a woman in a window seat made me feel—" She stopped, jaw tightening. Less alone. The city blurred. I looked at her, at the controlled line of her profile, at the hand resting on the balcony rail with just enough pressure to whiten the knuckles. Iris CO, CEO, heiress, woman who could buy buildings and still had no language for wanting to sit beside someone without making it a transaction. I have spent my whole life making myself easy to leave, I said. The words came from somewhere below thought. Once out, they felt terrifyingly true. Iris turned toward me. I kept my eyes on the skyline because saying it to her face might have made me dissolve. I learned early that if you don't ask for much, people praise you for being low maintenance while they take up all the room. Dana loved that about me. Or she loved what it let her avoid. I don't know. I got very good at being convenient. Funny enough to keep things light. Competent enough not to need help. Flexible enough to be rescheduled. Easy to leave, because I was always halfway out of my own needs anyway. Callie, Iris said. My name broke slightly in her mouth. I looked at her then, and she was close. I did not remember either of us moving. The distance between us had narrowed to the width of a decision. Her eyes moved over my face with restraint so visible it felt like touch. I do not find you convenient, she said. A laugh trembled out of me. That's the most romantic insult I've ever received. I mean that you are not easy to reduce. Not to a function, not to comfort, not to a seat number. I tried. It was unsuccessful. Tragic for your control variables. Devastating. The word should have been dry. It was not. Her hand shifted on the railing, closer to mine. Still not touching. Asking without asking. The space between our fingers became the loudest thing in the city. I wanted. The simplicity of it startled me. Not the old wanting, tangled in approval and fear, but something clearer and more dangerous. I wanted to touch her hand. I wanted to know what her face did when she stopped preventing herself from being happy. I wanted the impossible privacy of being allowed near the parts of her that money and silence had failed to protect. The balcony door opened. Callie? Mara's voice, apologetic and not apologetic enough. Sorry, they're asking for us at the sponsor table. I stepped back so quickly the cold air rushed between us. Iris's hand returned to stillness. Her face closed with practiced speed, but I had seen too much now. The closing hurt in a way the mystery never had. Of course, I said. My voice sounded almost normal. I deserved an award and possibly medical evaluation. Mara's eyes flicked between us. To her credit, she did not ah again. Iris inclined her head. Ms. Marsh. Professional. Perfect. A blade wrapped in silk. I nodded. Ms. SCO. I followed Mara back into the ballroom where the chandeliers were too bright and everyone wanted something they were willing to name. After the gala, Iris disappeared. Not physically from the earth, though for all the access I had to her, she might as well have taken a submarine to a private trench. I did not see her on my next flight to Chicago. The seat beside me was occupied by a man who removed his shoes before takeoff and ate a tuna sandwich with spiritual commitment. On the flight back, my seatmate was a college student who slept open-mouthed through turbulence. No iris, no cedar scent, no hand steadying the strap of my bag. At an industry breakfast 2 weeks later, she stood across the room speaking to a hotelier while I stood near the coffee urn pretending not to know exactly where she was. She did not look at me. Or she did, and I missed it, which became its own private torture. Professional silence settled between us like glass, clear enough to see through, hard enough to break your hand on. I told myself I was relieved. I told myself this while checking flight manifests in ways that made no sense because airlines did not reveal emotional cowards in advance. I told myself this while rewriting a strategy document for a regional hospitality chain and discovering, on page 4, that I had described their brand challenge as a defensive commitment to motion that prevents guests from experiencing the vulnerability of arrival. Mara appeared behind my chair. This is about a woman. It's about mid-market hotel repositioning. She read aloud. A brand can mistake distance for elegance, consistency for safety, and movement for freedom, until the guest is left admiring the surface without ever being invited inside. Strong insight, right? Callie. I I took the paper back. Fine, it may have a woman-adjacent subtext. The subtext has a balcony and unresolved eye contact. Did you reach out? No, I'm respecting the pullback. Are you? Or are you grateful for an excuse not to ask for anything? I hated when Mara became the kind of mentor people wrote thank you posts about on LinkedIn. She bought seats beside me for months, I said. I think the next move can be hers. Maybe, Mara said. Or maybe you're both standing on opposite sides of an automatic door waiting for the other person to trigger the sensor. That metaphor is hostile. It's accurate. I tried to work after she left. Instead, I opened a blank document and wrote Iris's name, then deleted it so violently the key stuck for half a second. That seemed like a healthy sign. The weeks that followed were ordinary in a way that felt punitive. Seattle slid deeper into rain. Work expanded to fill every available emotional cavity. I flew to Los Angeles and back with strangers. I saw Dana once across a grocery store aisle and felt only a distant sadness, like seeing a dress in a window that no longer fit. She lifted a hand. I lifted mine. We did not cross the aisle. Then, on a Tuesday morning in late October, Iris sent an email. It was not romantic. Of course it was not romantic. The subject line read, SEO Meridian Hospitality Inquiry. The message was addressed to Mara and me, copied to two people with titles long enough to require commas. It said SEO Meridian was considering a strategic rebrand of one of its hospitality arms, with particular interest in repositioning a collection of smaller properties under a more coherent identity. They were seeking an outside perspective. Iris would prefer to include Larkin Bell in the initial conversation if we were available. I read it 6 times. Mara, from her office, yelled, "Stop reading it and answer." I looked up. How did you know? Your panic has a typing rhythm. The meeting was scheduled for Friday at SEO Meridian's Seattle office, which occupied the upper floors of a downtown tower with a lobby so quiet it made my shoes feel rude. Everything was glass, stone, wood, and negative space. The receptionist greeted us by name. The elevator rose without the usual groans of machinery, as if even gravity had signed an NDA. I wore a charcoal suit and a blouse the color of cream, because apparently my subconscious had chosen violence. Mara glanced at me once in the elevator and said nothing, which was worse than anything she could have said. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. Ferries moved across the water like patient white stitches. 2 SEO Meridian executives greeted us, both polished, both friendly in the alert way. People are friendly when the real decision-maker has not yet arrived. We set up laptops. We accepted sparkling water. I arranged my notebook, then rearranged it because my hands needed a job. Iris entered exactly on time. No dramatic pause, no cinematic mercy, just the door opening and Iris CEO stepping in wearing a black suit, white shirt, no jewelry except the watch. Her hair was down. Her expression was professional and unreadable. My body, disloyal and apparently nostalgic for public humiliation, reacted as if she had put her hand on my back again. Mara, Iris said, shaking her hand. Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting us. Iris turned to me. Callie. Iris. We shook hands. It was the first time we had done that, which seemed absurd. Her hand was cool, dry, firm. The contact lasted perhaps 1 second longer than strictly necessary, or perhaps I had lost the ability to measure time around her. Her eyes met mine, and beneath the professional calm, I saw exhaustion. Not weakness, the cost of control. Then we sat down with other people present and said nothing personal at all. It was, somehow, the most intimate conversation we had ever had. Mara led with credentials. I moved into the strategic frame. Iris listened without performing interest, which made the interest more intense. When I spoke about legacy brands and the danger of confusing heritage with repetition, her pen paused. When I said that the strongest hospitality identities allowed guests to feel held without feeling managed, her eyes lifted to mine. The room had 4 other people in it, a screen full of market maps, and a carafe of water sweating quietly on a sideboard. Still, every sentence seemed to have a second life under the table. A brand architecture can create coherence, I said, clicking to the next slide. But coherence is not the same as control. The guest should sense intention, not choreography. Too much polish becomes surveillance. Too little, and you lose trust. The opportunity is to build a system that knows when to recede. Iris leaned back slightly. And if the company has historically been poor at receding? Her CFO glanced at her, missing everything. I held her gaze. Then the work begins with admitting presence is not the same as intimacy. Mara made a small note beside me. I did not look at it. I feared it simply said, woman. The meeting lasted 90 minutes. It was productive. It was restrained. It was unbearable. Iris asked precise questions, challenged assumptions without posturing, and once, when one of her executives tried to redirect the conversation toward a safer, more generic luxury position, she said, "No, Ms. Marsh is identifying the actual problem." And I had to take a sip of water to avoid dissolving into light. When it ended, hands were shaken again. Follow-up timelines were discussed. Everyone used last names and calendars and phrases like next steps, which are useful because they let adults pretend the future is administrative. Mara and the others moved toward the elevators together. I stayed behind to pack my laptop, partly because I needed a moment, and partly because my charger had become tangled around the table leg in a metaphor so obvious I resented it. Iris remained by the window, speaking quietly to her CFO. I did not look up. I could feel her there anyway. By the time I freed the charger and reached the lobby elevators, Mara had already gone down with one of the executives. The hallway was empty, except for Iris, standing beside the elevator bank, looking at the closed doors as if they had personally disappointed her. "They went ahead," she said. "Mara does love abandoning me in symbolic locations." The elevator arrived. We stepped inside. The doors closed. For 3 floors, neither of us spoke. The elevator smelled faintly of expensive air, some engineered blend of cedar, citrus, and corporate discretion. Numbers glowed above the door. 31, 30, 29. My reflection stood beside hers in the polished metal. Me with my laptop bag. Her with her perfect posture. 2 women pretending dissent was not a countdown. "I owe you an explanation for the flights," Iris said. Her voice was quiet. No preamble, no professional buffer. I looked at our reflections instead of her face. "You don't." "I already know." She turned slightly. Do you?" "Not the logistics. I'm sure the logistics are alarming and involve airline apps at a level I refuse to endorse. But I know enough." "What do you know?" My heart was beating too fast. I was 31 years old, in an elevator with a woman who had crossed the line between loneliness and longing by purchasing seat 16C 7 times, and for once, my fear did not get to be the loudest voice in the room. "I know you saw me when I didn't think anyone was looking," I said. "I know you wanted to be near and didn't know how to ask. I know you tried to turn a feeling into a system, because systems have rules and feelings apparently do not. I know it scared you when I became real enough to answer back." The elevator passed 20. I finally looked at her. The composure was there, but thin now, human under glass. "And I know," I said, "that I have spent a lot of time mistaking being chosen for being known. You didn't choose me loudly. You noticed me quietly. That doesn't make everything okay. It doesn't make the flights normal." "No," she said, "it doesn't. But it matters that when I told you I was uncomfortable, you tried to give me space. Clumsily. Expensively." A breath that was almost a laugh left her. "I am trying to develop other methods." "Good. Your current toolkit is legally fascinating." The elevator slowed, then continued. Some floors did not call it. The city hummed around us, unseen. Iris faced me fully. What do you want, Callie? There was no strategy in the question, no acquisition, no attempt to manage the answer before it arrived. She asked with the careful precision of someone unused to asking for anything she could not buy, someone placing a fragile object in my hands without knowing if I would keep it. I thought of Dana across the coffee shop table, waiting for me to step back into old ease. I thought of myself in 100 rooms, making jokes so no one would notice the plea underneath. I thought of Iris on a plane, lowering a shade against sunlight while I slept. Iris on a balcony saying less alone like a confession. Iris across a conference table hearing the problem under the presentation. The truth rose, simple and terrifying. I want to stop being easy to leave, I said. And I want you to stop hiding behind distance you can afford. I want you to ask me to dinner like a person, not arrange the universe until I appear beside you. I want slow and honest and probably awkward because I don't know what I'm doing and you clearly don't either. Her eyes shone. Not tears, not quite, but something close enough to make my chest ache. I can ask, she said. Can you? Badly, perhaps. I'll allow a learning curve. The elevator reached 12, then 11. Iris's hand moved first. Not to my waist, not my face. Nothing dramatic enough to let either of us hide inside a gesture bigger than the moment. Her fingers brushed mine where they hung at my side. A question. The same one her hand had asked on the balcony, interrupted before I could answer. This time, I answered. I took her hand. Her fingers closed around mine with a care that made my throat tighten. She looked down as if the sight surprised her. As if, after all the flights, all the proximity purchased and rationed and denied, she had not fully believed touch could be this simple. Her thumb moved once over my knuckle. Small. Devastating. Dinner, she said, and the word emerged steadier than her hand felt. Who would you have dinner with me, Callie? Not for work. Not because our flights align. Because I would like to spend time with you and I am asking. I smiled, and it felt different from smiling for clients, for Dana, for rooms that needed me harmless. It felt like a rival. Yes, I said, I would. The elevator reached the lobby but did not open immediately. A mechanical hesitation, half a second maybe, but it felt given to us. Iris looked at the doors, then back at me. May I do something else badly? My pulse moved into my mouth. Depends. May I kiss you? No one had ever asked me like that. Not as a performance of consent, not as a line said because it sounded good, but as if my answer mattered more than the wanting that prompted it. The question held room for no. That was what made yes feel possible. Yes, I said again, softer. She stepped closer. Slowly, so slowly, I could have changed my mind between one breath and the next. Her free hand rose, not to claim my face, but to touch the side of my jaw with 2 fingers, light as the first hand on my back in the terminal. My eyes closed before her mouth reached mine. The kiss was quiet. That was the first thing I knew. Quiet in the way. Snow is quiet in the way a room becomes quiet when everyone who shouldn't be there has left. Her lips were warm and careful, and then less careful when I leaned into her, when my hand found the lapel of her suit and held on with an echo that made both of us breathe differently. Months of restraint gathered there, but it did not rush. It unfolded. A first real kiss built from a desperate hug, from aisle seats and window shades, from rain on airport glass, from all the almosts we had survived badly enough to reach this one. When we parted, my forehead rested against hers. I had not planned it. My body simply went there, seeking the nearest honest place. Iris let out a breath that trembled once before she mastered it, and for the first time, I wished she would not have to master every tremor alone. The elevator doors opened. A man in a gray suit stood in the lobby, holding a phone, and wearing the blank expression of someone who had just encountered human feeling in a corporate transport system. Iris did not step away quickly. Neither did I. That, more than the kiss, felt like a revelation. "We'll take the next one," Iris said calmly. The doors closed again. I laughed then, helplessly, into the small space between us. Iris looked at me, startled, and then she laughed too. Fully this time. Not a suppressed fragment, not an escaped note, but a real laugh that warmed her whole face and made her look briefly, astonishingly young. "You're terrible," I said. "That poor man. He will recover. You don't know that. SEO Meridian has an excellent employee assistance program." I laughed harder, and she watched me as if joy were data she had never expected to collect in person. When the elevator finally opened again, we walked into the lobby, still holding hands. Not hidden, not announced, just held. Rain streaked the glass walls, turning downtown into watercolor. Mara stood near the security desk, pretending to look at her phone with the theatrical intensity of a woman who had absolutely seen everything and was choosing, for once in her life, not to comment. Her eyes flicked to our hands. One eyebrow rose. I gave her the smallest shake of my head. She smiled into her phone. Outside, the city smelled like wet pavement and coffee from the cart near the curb. Iris's driver waited beneath the awning, but she did not move toward the car. Instead, she turned to me with my hand still in hers. "Are you free tonight?" she asked. I thought of my apartment, my inbox, the version of myself that would have said yes too quickly or made a joke to avoid the sincerity of wanting. I thought of all the flights where she had sat beside me while I stared out the window, unaware that someone had chosen the aisle not to trap me, but to be near the direction I faced. "Yes," I said, "but no private dining room where the menu doesn't have prices." Her mouth curved. "No?" "No. I want somewhere normal. Food on plates larger than coasters. Chairs designed for human regret. A server who introduces herself by first name and means it. I can do normal." "Can you?" "With guidance. There will be homework." I suspected. We stood there smiling at each other like idiots, which was new for both of us in different ways. A gust of cold air swept under the awning, and I shivered. Iris noticed immediately, because noticing was her native language, even when speaking was not. She released my hand only long enough to take off her coat and place it around my shoulders. "Iris," I said, half protest, half something else. "You can object on ideological grounds after you stop shivering." The coat was warm from her body and carried that cedar cold scent that had started all of this. Or maybe it had started before I knew to notice. I pulled it closer. This is dangerously close to a romance beat. "I don't know what that means." "Liar. You read novels in airports." "Not for tactical application." "We'll see." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then silenced it without answering. The gesture was small, but I understood its size. Somewhere, a room wanted a version of her. Somewhere, people were waiting for the asset, the obstacle, the woman who solved tension by controlling variables. She stayed where she was. "What?" she asked, seeing my expression. "Nothing." "Callie." "I'm just recognizing without studying." Her face softened. "Is that what we're calling it?" "For now. Branding can evolve." She nodded solemnly. "I'll await the revised deck." I stepped closer, because I could. Because no one had asked me to make the wanting smaller. Because the door had opened and I had not mistaken the hallway for home. Iris met me halfway, not with a kiss this time, just with her shoulder brushing mine under the awning while the rain came down around us. Later, there would be explanations with more detail. There would be dinner in a small neighborhood restaurant where Iris looked suspiciously at laminated menus and then admitted the fries were excellent. There would be awkward pauses, careful questions, the slow work of turning observation into conversation and proximity into trust. We would not become easy. I did not want easy anymore. That evening, though, standing outside CO Meridian's tower in her coat, with rain stitching the city silver and her hand finding mine again, like a promise made in a language we were both still learning, I let the future remain unbranded. For once, I did not need to package the feeling to prove it existed. I did not need to make myself convenient for it to stay. Callie, she said. Yes? I'm glad you grabbed the coat. I laughed, and this time, when I leaned into her, it was not to hide from anyone. It was only to be near.